I am so pleased to welcome and to introduce today's guest speaker, Tanya Lewis Lee. A Sarah Lawrence alumna, she is also an esteemed producer, writer, entrepreneur, and women's health advocate. She led the production of Netflix's She's Gotta Have It and All Rise, to note just a few recent projects. In 2009, she produced the documentary Crisis in the Crib, which explores the issue of infant mortality in the United States, and ultimately spurred her to found her own wellness brand, Movida Organics. In addition to her Sarah Lawrence bachelor's degree, Tanya is a graduate of the University of Virginia School of Law. A best-selling author, you may have seen her recently on our Instagram reading her favorite, Please, Puppy, Please, a children's book she co-wrote with her husband Spike Lee, as part of the Child Development Institute's ongoing series, Griffin Storytime. As you all know, a core component of a Sarah Lawrence education is the art of finding solutions to situations and questions that lack precedent, to create a path when no blueprint exists. Throughout her career, Tanya has done exactly that. I am delighted to welcome as our commencement speaker, Tanya Lewis Lee.
Good morning, graduates. I'm so sorry we're not on the grounds of Westlands today to celebrate you and your accomplishments, but this is what it is, and here we are. So Sarah Lawrence class of 2020, it took a lot to get here. I know, I was once in your shoes, but I also know your achievements as graduates comes from the hard work of so many who have come before you and who helped you along the way. As living human beings, we are part of a continuum of our ancestors who lived and survived to push us along the way, and those who will come long after we are gone. We had parents, teachers, friends who nurtured us along the way, and we have had doubters who told us what we could not do as well. The big gestures and the small, the good and the bad from others helped to propel us here. And yet you alone kept going, didn't give up when it got hard, has stayed on track to reach your goal of college graduate. Congratulations. Enjoy your day. Enjoy this moment. You've earned it, because tomorrow it begins again. I know you've already set a new goal. You're already moving towards it. My hope for you and for all of us is that as you continue setting and achieving goals, the overriding objective is to create a better world for us, so that 30 years from now, one of you will be delivering the Sarah Lawrence Commencement Address to that class in person, in a world where our leadership is truly working in the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all humanity, including the poor, Black and brown, immigrant, LGBTQ, and female. And the only way we will get there is through what you do from this day on. We all have a stake, and we all have a role to play moving this ideal forward. We need all hands on deck. And the beauty is your precious Sarah Lawrence education has given you the tools you need. What's the most important tool Sarah Lawrence has added to your toolbox? The ability to be a creative thinker. There has been much talk about the need for higher education, especially the need for liberal arts education with its high cost. Unfortunately, being able to think thoughtfully, being able to question what is before you to determine its validity, to be able to debate ideas without being afraid of being wrong has become such a privilege that at the supposed highest levels of government and commerce, people just go along to get that paycheck. Class of 2020, don't go for the okie doke. Don't sell out humanity for the paycheck. Not that money is not important, but use your hard-earned critical thinking skills, especially when it gets hard. As we have seen during this dreaded pandemic that has kept you from the joys of bacchanalia followed by graduation with your colleagues, when you are empowered but only go along to get along, we end in disaster. I understand the fear of going up against authority. It is scary and it is dangerous. But as the governor of Texas recently said, there are more important things than living, though I think he and I have very different ideas about what that means. Keeping the planet safe and habitable for all citizens is worth the fear, is worth the danger. But who am I talking to? You're Sarah Lawrence graduates. I know you know already. We are an interconnected species. Our children and grandchildren will benefit or be damaged by the actions we each take today, just as we benefit or lose from the virtues or sins of our ancestors. When I graduated, I had an idea of what I wanted to accomplish. At its core, I wanted to help make the world better. Experiences in my life as a young Black girl in mostly white environments unused to people like me made it clear that change needed to be made. And the voices of those who continue to make a difference, like Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, showed me that each individual, if they put their minds to it, can make those changes. Upon graduation, I left the warm, nurturing, and at times tough Northeast campus of Sarah Lawrence and headed south to Virginia for law school, full of optimism, hope, and belief that the world was ready for me to step up. I was quickly reminded that Sarah Lawrence was truly a privilege, that not everyone cared what I thought, and that the change I wanted to bring made some people uncomfortable because they liked it just the way it is. I was reminded that I was just another high yellow N-word, as the note that was left on my car outside of my apartment let me know. But I put on my armor, kept working, clerked for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and for Human Rights Watch, fighting to help political prisoners in Somalia to be free. And yet, as I began thinking about graduating from law school, prompted by my father, who was afraid that if I became a civil rights lawyer, I'd be broke for the rest of my life, I went to work for a law firm in Washington, D.C. Now, a quick note about my father. He grew up in rural, segregated Virginia, went to college and graduate school, became a corporate executive, making it all the way to the C-suite, contributed significantly and intentionally to helping others like him become successful. He was of the first group of Black men to desegregate corporate America in the 1960s. They were truly pioneers. His dream for his children was that we would carry the torch forward. For him, the best way to financial security was through corporate channels. And he was right about being a corporate attorney. You get paid first and win or lose. It is a noble profession, and I caution those of us who think of ourselves as creative do-gooders not to bear judgment on more traditional routes. It takes all kinds, and I'm grateful to my lawyers when they do a good job. It was just not for me. I lasted 2 years. It wasn't the work doing corporate commercial contracts that I liked. In fact, it was fun to work on agreements that brought the first television programming to airlines. But I remember being in the law library of my firm one day, working on one of my contracts, thinking to myself, why am I helping other people make their dreams come true, getting the golden crumbs, when I could be making my own dreams come true? All of my close friends were artists. I loved to write, but never believed writing, much less being a published author, was for me. That was for other people, special artists. And then I read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron and discovered something about myself. I was a shadow artist. I wanted to be creative, and so surrounded myself with creative people, even going so far as to marry an artist. And as such, found a way to becoming the creative I was supposed to be. That process was not easy, though, even though I wanted it. I remember one day early in our marriage, being in Paris in a beautiful 5-star hotel overlooking the Place de la Concorde, standing in the middle of our beautiful suite with tears streaming down my face, telling my new husband about how unhappy I was. I was no longer working at a firm, was the mother of a newborn, feeling like I was sitting on the sides of life instead of being in the mix, telling him I was meant to be a player, not a bench warmer. He stared at me confused, unsure what to say, as I bawled until I just stormed out of the room. You see, despite the fact that I knew I no longer wanted to practice law, my identity was wrapped up in having accomplished passing the bar and being what I thought was an important lawyer. Now, when people ask what I did for a living, the honest answer was I was a full-time mother, which at the time felt so small. What I know now is that my husband could not help me, even though I appreciate him being there to listen. Raising my children is the most important thing I've ever done in my life, and is certainly not bench warming. And that moment was really the beginning steps towards my newfound life. giving up doing what I thought was expected to make other people happy, getting that check, and embracing doing me. Soon after that trip, I began writing just for me every day to attempt to hone my craft. It would take me 3 years before I felt competent to share my work with anyone. And now I am lucky because I've been able to marry my desire to contribute to social justice and be creative. And my children have been at the heart of my work. When my daughter was about 3 years old, we were watching the show Rugrats, and she said, she's rather fair complexion like me, the people in the show are gray. And then she looked at her own skin and said, I'm gray. I was stunned. I don't know if white children go through this existential understanding of their skin color, but my son, also around the age of 3, came home from preschool one day and said, Mommy, some people get tan from the sun, but I'm already tan. And I said, yes, son, you're brown. And I remember watching my 3-year-old son stand there in front of me, touching his face with his fingers, saying, I'm brown, I'm brown. Unsure of what it meant to him, I waited a day or two for a time when we were playing, and I said, look at these brown legs. What do you think? Do you like the color of your legs? And he said, I love them. And I said, me too, and breathed a sigh of relief. He was comfortable in his skin. Being brown was okay by him. So I initially wrote my children's book, Please Baby Please, for them, with the idea that there were just not enough children's picture books that showed children of color. But that book is for all children, because depicting children of color featured in books or on screen and scenes from their regular daily lives is good for everybody. For those that don't interact with people from different backgrounds for whatever reason, the media can be an important part of knowing our neighbors and realizing, while there may be cultural or ritualistic differences, at our core, all human beings ultimately want the same things for themselves and their families. I've gone on to write more children's books, to produce documentaries, television shows, and films. I've even founded a women's health and wellness brand, Movita, that sells organic vitamin supplements, but at its core is about inspiring and encouraging and supporting women to live their best, healthiest lives. Because what all data shows is that healthy women make healthy babies, make healthy families, make healthy communities. And so, as you set out into the world as a Sarah Lawrence graduate to find your place and your purpose, the thing I want to leave you with today most is the charge to take care of yourself. Class of 2020, you know full well how the tides of life can swing wildly one way or the other. Having come to college with a Barack Obama presidency full of hope and positive change, leaving with a president who cannot show empathy for thousands of dying people and shows more concern for the dollar than human life. You know what it's like to hunker down in a pandemic, figuring out how to get home, to help your fellow classmates, how to quickly adjust to a new normal and just deal. Given that life can throw anything your way, and that in order to even be able to hear what it is you were supposed to be doing, you need to be as clear and healthy as possible. Audre Lorde said it best. Caring for myself, it's not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation and political warfare. So I ask you, take care of your physical body. When I graduated, we had to fulfill a phys ed requirement. I hope you still do. Of course, you had a beautiful gym facility to use. We had Hydra Fitness in the bottom of Bates. And I hated working out, and Hydra Fitness didn't help. To pass the requirement, I ended up joining a gym in Yonkers. I went, but it wouldn't be until my third year of law school that the idea of working out as a part of an overall lifestyle really began to stick. My sister at the time said to me, you're 24, you should start exercising now so that when you're 40, you're not just trying to figure it out. And that was some of the best advice I have ever received. By all statistics, I should be on medication for all sorts of issues, but I know that because of my lifestyle, I am not. Movement matters, what you eat matters. Also, you gotta take care of your mental well-being. Keep negative energy away, work on positive thinking, even as things don't go your way. We don't always know why something doesn't work out. Sometimes it's to push you in another direction, keep you from harm, teach you a lesson. It is often when the universe denies your wish that you receive the greatest gift. Even in the darkness, we find light. Keep learning. Education does not stop at school. Be curious, be open. Know that now, as you leave Sarah Lawrence, the real self-work begins. Even when our leaders exhibit abhorrent, negative, hateful, petty behavior, we must block and repel and keep forging forward. So keep moving ahead, knowing that you are truly some part of something bigger, that you are connected to each other. You are connected to me. You know that if someone sneezes in China, that you can catch a cold in New York. So what you do matters for all of us. Being a person who cares about the collective good of all humanity is not being a sucker. It is the height of all humanity, and caring for yourself is caring for everybody else. When I was where you are, South Africa still had apartheid. I still felt that I had to take my partners at my law firm staring at my chest openly, or my male associates making inappropriate comments. The casting couch quid pro quo was still very much in effect. Gay people could not get married, and the thought of a Black American president was a joke in a comedy sketch. But we have come a long way, baby, and we still have a long way to go. The time moves quickly, but we remain busy. As Winston Churchill said, "Be kind, but be fierce. Take up the mantle of change, for now is your time." I am grateful that you spent your 4 years at Sarah Lawrence, and look forward to every individual contribution you make, whether publicly known or quietly felt in simple action. Go forth, be strong, do good. And class of 2020, congratulations again.